Okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to 10 Talks. I am your host, Kyle Garza.
I'm your co-host, Don Trimble.
And I'm your co-host, Nick Busta.
And today we're going to be talking to you guys a little bit about the subject of how was it that you became a Christian? Where did that start? How did that go down? Really, what was that experience like for you? So I'll start this one out because I've told this one a load of times. So I grew up in a Christian home where the narrative of becoming a Christian that I had heard so often was someone who was like down in the dumps, had some, like messy life experience, and then turned to God in desperation and in tears and, the overwhelming feeling of God's grace poured down on them. They, became a Christian, let's say. This was not my life. I grew up in Sunday school. I grew up with, solid Christian parents. I was the kid that didn't have what I thought was the testimony of a person who comes to Jesus and knows this is what I believe because it's all I have. The struggle for me was getting to the age of 15. I think 15 was like where it started for me, and beginning to think to myself, it was a crisis moment. I think of it as of, do I only believe that this worldview is true, that God is real, that Jesus was who he claimed to be? Because it's what I've been told my whole life, or because it actually makes sense and it can stand against scrutiny in, formal, logical, scientific, philosophical senses. So that year was a year where I basically was offered a course that was a sort of a worldview course. And it was also the year where YouTube became a very open, accessible source of just knowledge, beyond just what Google could give you, for whatever you could find. And so I spent a full year watching everything that I could when it came to debates, especially watching Christopher Hitchens and William Lynn Craig hash it out, whether or not God exists. Watching Richard Dawkins and John Lennox. John Lennox is like my favorite apologist nowadays. Watching these guys just go toe-to-toe with, how can we know this is true? And time again, I just kept coming out of it with, these Christian guys just make more sense. And by the end of that year, especially, just based on what I was looking through, just logically, philosophically, scientifically, rationally, I came to a sort of logical conclusion that Christianity must be true. So it wasn't an emotional downpouring of like, oh, I'm such a sinner. Like, that was always there to some extent, but I was getting to that point where it was like, I know you can manipulate emotions. You can manipulate someone into feeling that something is true, and it actually isn't because it doesn't make good sense. And so, for me, it was that Christianity makes the most sense. The way I've heard it described is it has the most explanatory power of all the worldviews out there. It makes the most sense of why I am the way I am, why the world is the way it is, why I have this sense of, the expression is, the moral law within, the starry host above. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why do I have this innate sense of right and wrong? And these kind of ideas. So that was my conversion experience. I mean, really it was, I had grown up thinking Christianity was true, but it was very much because it's all I knew. And after putting it under scrutiny and comparing it to pretty much every other major world religion, plus atheism, whether or not you count that as a religion in a way, it just came out to, it makes more sense. And it's the most defensible worldview that's out there. And I think this is worth investing my life in. So I don't want to say that as too cerebral, because I don't want to get the impression across that like I only believe in Christianity because it makes sense. I do have a very experiential relationship with God, through all sorts of factors in my life, ranging from just the general family turmoil that I've been through with just kind of my family background, to just the relationship that I have with my wife that is anchored and centered in who Christ Jesus is and what that makes us as people. It is complete, and everything centers on it, and it just makes good sense. And that's kind of been my story. It's not an exciting one. It's, what I thought was an exciting one when I was young, which was the I was a meth addict and then I went to prison and I found Jesus and now I'm out and I want to tell people.
Yeah.
I never had that.
Yeah. Well, I can bounce off that one totally if you
Go
want,
for it.
if you're good with that. Just because like the beginning of the story, let's just like end that because it was exactly the same as yours, right? I had a dad, especially mom and dad, but my dad especially. He just prayed way too hard, right? Like, whoa, you praying so hard, man. It just became normal, right?
Sure.
Growing up and just a really solid family and extended family. Just no meth addicts. Really, I mean, like just everybody.
That's the metric of what is a solid family.
Just everything seems pretty dang orderly, and but we don't know that this. I guess I'll say it like this: we know that this isn't genetic. You know, this Christianity thing doesn't just pass down in that way, and so it's interesting looking back and saying, okay, like this is the time that I became a Christian for me because I know, man, I was praying that thing when I was like 3 years old. You know?
Yeah.
And so I will say this: I know there were like God moments when I was younger.
Sure.
One of the first that really rocked me, I was in middle school, and I was a part of this lead group of this thing called Club 121. Have you guys heard of this? It's based on a Bible verse, which I don't know right now, but basically,
It's a good one though.
man, we
It's
had
memorable.
like exactly in middle school. I think we had like our entire class, basically the amount of an entire class going like well over 100 to 200 students going to this Bible study after school at my middle school. And I'm one of the leaders of it. And I remember going and sitting down with the leadership group, maybe like 7 or 8 kids, all really good friends, okay? We're sitting down and there's this youth pastor sitting there and he looks at all of us and he's like, you guys, all we need to do is just get them to pray this. And he like gave us like the script. And I have no idea why. I think this is, I look at a really defining God moment, but I remember being in front of all my friends and looking at him and it really bothered me. And I'm like, wait, they just have to like say these words. And then I just totally was going to the extreme. I'm like, what if they like kill people then? What if they do meth? A lot of it. What if they're like, Jesus, kill him in my heart, and then meth?
Right.
They're gonna go to heaven? And he just like looked at me and was like, yeah. And I don't know why. I remember like holding it in there, but like I'm holding it in. I couldn't talk for the rest of the time. I leave and I walked like, it was like 3 miles home, and I'm just bawling. I have no idea why. Then I remember going to church that Sunday, and I didn't talk to anybody about it. I'm in Sunday school, and this lady who's taught Sunday school for forever for me, she knows me way too well. She's up there talking about something, and I just start bawling. I don't even like. Wow. I was out of nowhere, and I remember then, it like I literally like blacked out. I mean, like all of a sudden, like in the front of the church, and like people are around me, and they're like, "We don't know why he's crying. I don't know." And like I remember this old lady being like, nothing can ever snatch you out of the hand of God. She's like telling me that because I was trying to iterate some of this because I think right
because
she's
like,
it
bothered
you
you or
prayed
something.
it, it's okay, and I'm like that's not it, and I'm just bawling. Okay, so I go on and I just know this, like in my life I had a solid family background, okay, Christian family background, but it hadn't hit me until I come back from college, okay. And I had always played drums at church. I played drums for Jesus since I was a little kid, okay?
Praise him, drum him.
Basically what happens is this. I'm playing a Sunday night. I don't want to be there, okay? There's not a lot of people there, okay? Definitely not any younger people. And I'm just out of college. And I'm there. I'm like, this is stupid, man. And this preacher gets up. I just got done with worship and rocked it, obviously, for Jesus.
Naturally. And
she gets up there, and it was that idea, right, where it feels like she's talking to you. Only I don't know why, like, it just felt like over and over again, this idea of just give it up was hitting me, like, so much. And I don't know what I was holding on to, really. But I remember being like, I need to, like, give it up, all of it, whatever I'm holding on to. And I walked up front. I go up to the altar, and she prayed for me, and basically I remember as she's praying for me, she kind of leaves, and I just remember like thinking about that concept of giving it up, and I felt what I believe to be the presence of God. Totally. It felt like hot water was poured all over me. Okay, and I remember as it's happening, I'm like, I don't ever want to forget this. This is happening. This is happening right now. Yeah. I don't want to forget this. So I leave. I'm really excited about it. And the next Sunday comes, okay? And I'm sitting there for church, and I just play drums for Jesus now like never before, right? And I'm thinking about this. I really am. And I'm like, I don't know. It just had really rocked me. And I remember sitting there, and I went to a smaller church. Again, this is small town Nebraska where it was at. Not a lot of new people come. But this dude came through, and he was a trucker, okay?
Okay.
He's got tats everywhere. And when not a lot of people come through and you see a new dude like that, everybody's like,
Oh,
you see
dude,
that drunk
hide
with
the
tats over
kids.
there, right? Exactly. And I remember after the worship, he's like the classic greeter dude comes up from our church, goes up to him, and he's like, "What's up, brother?
Yeah.
Right? I'm your brother, and I love you." And he's like in his face, and he's like, "What made you come here?" And this dude, he's saying it to him, but it was totally for me.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at him. This is a week later, and he goes, I don't really know. I was driving by. I just felt like I wanted to go to church. Okay, and as I was passing the church, it felt like hot water was poured like all over me. And I remember as he said that,
Wow.
like I'm sitting across the aisle, and I just like turned over and was like,
Bruh, I feel that.
"What?"
Do you too drum for Jesus?
Yeah. So I guess I just look at that point. And I look back at that, and I believe before then I didn't know where I was really going.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would profess Jesus, I would tell anybody that, but ever since then I pray in a different way. And I believe that notion of praying without ceasing is so real. Like at any moment, you're going to be directed and you're going to be showing something right now. Like God's going to show you something. He's going to show you the next thing you're supposed to do in your life.
That's solid.
Yeah.
Man, I like how that's like such a pivotal market moment for you too.
Yeah.
And especially that it centers on like the idea of giving it all up.
Right.
Because I guess that was like the point too that for me made all the difference. Is like this is an all or nothing kind of thing.
For sure.
Like if there is no God, like there's nothing. And
Yeah.
boy, I got to figure out how to pretend that life has any kind of meaning or purpose to it.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
I also
what do you-
drum for Jesus. So, bruh,
Have we talked about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, we're going to talk
New
about it.
episode,
I did
right?
cajon mostly because
Yeah.
Oh, that's a drum?
We're much more acoustic than bandy typically with our high school group, but
I love it.
Awesome.
What you got?
So yeah, I'll go. I will try and keep this concise. It's like tell me about
the most important thing on earth
ever. Yeah. And
Yeah.
But keep it brief. Like that kind of thing. So I was growing up. I was the church kid of church kids, right? Like, you guys remember doing like sword drills? Like, no,
Yeah, did
Yes,
the
I
flip
just
to the verse
introduced
kinda
my
thing?
youth group
yeah,
to this.
okay, yeah. So like, I was like the guy, right? Like, I could nail it. Like,
you didn't
so
even
quick.
need that index at the front.
Exactly. Come on
Did
now.
you,
you
okay,
know.
wait, but did you have one of the cheater Bibles though? That
No,
had the
I did
little,
not.
Okay,
Yeah, that was absolutely cheating.
you know what I'm
Couldn't
talking
do
about? A little like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Had tabs on the
Oh,
side.
yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't do that.
Okay.
So and scripture verses, I was all over it, and all the Bible stories. Like, I grew up in the church, all that kind of thing. But I had a really good knowledge of God, but I didn't know God.
No, God.
You know what I mean? I thought I did. I really thought I did. High school, same thing. Like, I was known as like the kid you would go to for like ask questions about the Bible, things like that.
Yeah.
College, same thing. But at the time of this recording, I can say it's just a little bit after the it's my how should I put this? My 7-year birthday of being born again.
Like, truly.
As I said, yeah, like really, like I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like this is it. And to keep it concise, my wife Jenny and I, we had how should we put this? An enthusiastic discussion one day.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so I was just praying about that, and it was actually just praying about that argument, which I don't even know what it was, so clearly it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it was then that God put like the weight of my sin on me, saying like,
Wow.
you've been asking, essentially it's like, you've been asking, why is this not improving? Here's why. And I felt this weight of sin on me, like,
yeah, the conviction.
yeah, and like I couldn't even stand up straight, like I literally felt that, and it felt horrible. And I think it's in Psalm 37, either 37 or 51, where David talks about when his sin was upon him after the whole issue with Bathsheba, which that's not what I did. I didn't do that. But I mean,
I didn't have someone else's wife
Right,
stay
yeah.
with me and then send them to their death.
and so, but like it said that that God broke his bones essentially, like this
Yeah.
weight, and I'm like, that's what it is,
Wow.
And when he was saying like, I'm not gonna answer your prayers until you confront me about this, and for days I just tried to hold off, like, nope, not gonna happen, no, pride, getting in the way, and then but also fear, all these different things, like, I thought I was good, but then when I finally just like you were saying, just letting it go, being like, all you, God, I stink essentially, and I want to stop. Help me stop. I don't want to do this anymore. Like just all you. That weight just immediately just gone.
Yeah, and you feel it.
I felt, and it was unbelievable. And from then on out, it's been, I liked reading the Bible before and all those things, but now it was like, Scripture, and you're just like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just alive and open.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at people and they're like, you ask like, have you been reading Scripture? And they're like, not so much. And you want to look at them and go, like, why? I don't understand. It's Scripture. So from then on out, it's been just so. I had one of those like. There was a pastor at my church growing up who said like, you're not a Christian unless you know the exact day that you became a Christian. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. But then
never read that anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
Not in there.
Where'd you see that?
Yeah. And so like I'm one of those who I guess I can go to a day, but I wouldn't look at someone being like, oh, you don't know the day.
Yeah.
But it's just what happens that I actually like have one of those experiences. But yeah, from then on out, it's been just amazing ever since. And so just awesome.
How interesting too that you both tethered it to this concept of like feeling like the weight being released.
Yeah.
So my like personal life verse is Psalm 51, 10 through 12, and it is also David post Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And his prayer is, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." And that for me was that same kind of thing. It was, man, I am so aware of what a terrible person I am because I hear my thought life. I'm aware of what is wrong with me more than anybody else. Yeah. And I totally feel that too. I think that is like the great hurdle that everyone must overcome is until you can be made well, you must realize how sick you are.
Gotta realize how much you suck.
You moldy shower, you.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Wow, that was deep. Well, until next time, we'll say once again, we love you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.